Okay, let's do this. Welcome to a super fast, high-speed revision of professional ethics. We're going to move quick, so let's lock in these core concepts for your CA final audit exam.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with why ethics is so important. Then we'll hit the 5 big principles, look at the 5 major threats you'll face, talk about how to protect yourself, and wrap up with a quick look at the disciplinary side of things. Let's go.
First things first, let's talk about why we even have a code of ethics. This isn't just some boring chapter to memorize, it's literally the foundation of the entire profession.
Look, it all boils down to one simple word: credibility, trust. Without it, the whole CA profession, well, it doesn't really have any value, does it? The Code of Ethics is the rule book that builds and protects that public trust. It's everything.
All right, let's move on to the 5 fundamental principles. I want you to think of these as the absolute, non-negotiable pillars of your professional life. Everything you do is built on these. You've got to know these by heart: integrity, objectivity, professional competence and due care, confidentiality, and professional behavior. Seriously, every single ethical question or problem you'll ever encounter traces right back to one of these 5.
Integrity sounds simple, right? Be honest, be straightforward. But it goes deeper. It means you absolutely cannot be associated with any information you think is false, misleading, or just plain reckless. Think of objectivity as your professional shield. It means your judgment isn't clouded by bias, a conflict of interest, or someone else trying to push you around. Your decisions have to be based on facts, period.
Now this one's kind of like a 2-for-1 deal. First, you've got competence, which means you have to keep learning and stay up to date. And second is due care. That just means you have to be diligent, careful, thorough, and on time with your work.
Confidentiality. This is a big one. Client information is sacred. You just don't share it without explicit permission unless there's a legal or professional duty that says you have to. And get this duty sticks with you forever, even long after you've stopped working with the client.
And finally, professional behavior. This one is all about protecting the reputation of the profession as a whole. It means you follow the laws and you don't do anything that would make people lose trust in CAs. Like making wild claims about your skills or trashing another CA's work. Okay, so we've got these incredible principles, but what tries to tear them down? Let's talk about the 5 major threats to your independence that you have to be constantly watching out for. These are the things that can cause cracks in those pillars. You gotta think of these as massive red flags. Being able to spot a self-interest threat, a self-review threat, advocacy, familiarity, or an intimidation threat. Well, that's the absolute first step to staying independent and true to those principles.
First up, the self-interested threat. This is when your own interests, usually financial, could mess with your professional judgment. A classic example: when one client pays you so much money that you're kind of scared to disagree with them. That's a huge red flag.
Next up is self-review. The easiest way to think about this one is you can't grade your own homework. It's just not going to work. If you helped design a financial system, how can you then turn around and be truly objective when you're auditing it? You can't.
Then we have the advocacy threat. This is where you stop being an impartial referee and start being the client's biggest cheerleader. You're promoting their side so much that you've completely lost your objectivity. Acting as their advocate in a lawsuit is a perfect example.
The familiarity threat. This happens when you get a little too cozy with a client. Maybe you've worked with them for years, or a family member works there. You become too sympathetic, and you start accepting their explanations without digging deep enough.
And finally, the intimidation threat. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's about being bullied or pressured, whether it's out in the open or more subtle. Like a client threatening to sue you or fire you if you don't give them the opinion they want.
Okay, so you've spotted a threat. Now what? You can't just ignore it and hope it goes away. You need to put up your defenses. And that's where safeguards come in.
So what are safeguards? They're your action plan. They are the specific steps you take to either get rid of a threat completely or, at the very least, shrink it down to a level where it's no longer a real problem.
And you've got a whole toolbox of these things. You can bring in more people, you can have a totally independent person come in and double-check the work, or you can build a wall between your audit and consulting teams. And hey, don't forget the ultimate safeguard. If a threat is just too big, you can always walk away from the engagement.
All right, last section. What happens when all of this fails? When principles are broken and safeguards don't work? Well, the profession has a system to hold people accountable and protect its reputation. Let's take a quick look.
It pretty much boils down to two main bodies. You've got the Board of Discipline, which handles what you could call the less serious stuff, the things listed in the first schedule. Then, for the really serious misconduct, you have the Disciplinary Committee, which handles everything in the second schedule. It's a clear two-tiered system to ensure accountability.
So as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with this question to really think about. Because your commitment to these principles, to integrity, to objectivity, it's not just about your own career. It's about upholding the trust and the reputation of the entire profession. Something to keep in mind, right?